Let's talk about productivity for a moment. One of the key elements of productivity is understanding the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. One is getting the job done well. The other is getting it done quickly. And ideally, you want to have both, but sometimes you have to make a decision between the two. Sometimes you have to prioritize one over the other. So in terms of effectiveness versus efficiency, there's an adage that my shop teacher back in junior high school used to say to me, which wasn't my best class because I'm a bit of a klutz and I didn't do things very well, which means I heard this very frequently. He said very frequently to me, Don, you've got to slow down if you want to get better results. The slowest way is the fastest way. Now, he used this in terms of building things, right? You got to measure 3 times to make sure you got it right. You got to measure the piece of wood. You got to measure the gap in the saw. You got to measure the height of the saw. You got to do all that and make sure you got it right. Because what he was saying to me is that the best way to achieve the result that you really want is to make sure that the efforts that you're doing are the best way to get the result that you really want. This is key, recognizing what that is and what you've got to do to get there. Okay, so let's take some examples of this really quickly. So let's say you're writing an article. I can write an article and slap it up on a blog in, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. Or I can spend 2 hours and create a video to go in that and create a couple of graphics to go in it and maybe make it into an outline with jump links to go down because it's longer. Maybe I write a longer, more fully fleshed out article. Maybe I go do keyword research before I write that article so that article is one that will actually rank in the search engines afterwards. All of those pieces are slower, but they enable me to get to that result. The reason I'm writing the article in the first place is to get traffic, to get impact, to convince people, to maybe to get opt-ins. All of those pieces are combined in that. And if I just slap an article up there in 20 minutes, I'm going to achieve a fraction of those pieces. Same thing with creating a video. I can just create a video, or I can spend 15 minutes before, maybe do some research into what topics, what actual word structure to use to rank that video high on YouTube, to look at what competition I have out there, what are the areas, the focuses in that video that I can focus on that not a lot of other people have focused on, and I do a much better video as a result. To say nothing about scripting and designing and everything else like that. How about creating a webinar? This I have to laugh at. It's so many people just sit down and slap out a PowerPoint presentation in 15 minutes and think they're going to go sell $100,000 worth of stuff on a webinar. So many people just create 3 emails that are basically cut and paste saying, show up on Wednesday at 8 p.m. and send that out and then wonder why they only had 10% of the people who signed up for the webinar actually showed up. So many people don't create any part of the funnel for the people who didn't sign up for the webinar in the first place, and so then never hear about all the aspects of your product. So they don't know about your product when you're sending them the emails afterwards that said, hey, this product you went to the webinar about that they didn't go to, you should buy. How about doing a launch? There's a whole bunch of areas here. When you're launching a product where when you slow down, you'll get better results. Let me name one very specific aspect of that. You really want to have at least 300 to 500 people on your list to succeed in a launch. If you've got 200 people, you might get two sales, one sale. Your eventual goal is to sell a bunch of product, so you make some money and have some impact on the world. And if you're pushing and you don't slow down, you send that out immediately, and you don't wait until you've got a list big enough, then you're doing the same launch again 3 months later to another list and burning out that list because that first list has already seen that launch. It's better to focus on getting that list built and do it right. Slow down a wee bit. Don't be so impatient to get the launch out there that you do it correctly in the first place. Going evergreen. So for those of you who don't know what evergreen is when we put a product out there in an always on kind of situation so that when people come into our world, we can immediately sell them something. Most people go evergreen far too early. You really need to have a launch, to have a funnel, to have everything structured so that it's working and that you've proven that funnel against paid traffic. Yet most people say, hey, I had a launch. I did it. I've got all the recordings. I'm just going to make it be evergreen. And then they wonder why they can't make any money from it. Well, there's a really good reason for that. Now, besides the business things that I just talked about, this applies in all aspects of your life. Finding the love of your life. How many people have met somebody at the bar they thought was cute? They were pretty drunk, and so they went off and ended up sleeping with them, and it turns into a relationship, and they're wondering why they've got problems later on. How about building your retirement? Not only does it take time to build funds for retirement, but actually your retirement plan, what it is that you're going to do during your retirement, and structuring your finances and so that you can have that retirement plan. So there's a big difference in having the exact same amount of money structured so that you can draw on it in your retirement when you need to, versus having that chunk of money just there and ending up spending a bunch of it, doing a bunch of vacations right when you retire, and then you have to go back to work again because you haven't got any money left. Ultimately, the principle of this is to recognize that this is a big picture issue. What you need to be doing as you're going through the key decisions that you make in your life is to ask yourself, big picture, what do I really want? Do I want to just do a launch, or do I want to do a launch that brings in X number of dollars, X number of customers, X amount of impact on the world, builds a list to this amount? All those elements are what you really want. Carefully define that. What exactly does that look like? And then work to make sure that you built the system that enables that to happen, that you're not rushing things, trying to get it done quickly so that you can actually achieve that success that you're after. Now, I do have to caution you here. I want you to recognize I did not just say, don't take action. What I said was make sure you're taking the right actions in the right order and the right timing so that you can get the best results. When you rush things, and oftentimes, I will tell you, oftentimes the rush happens because you've got a deadline. You just said, I'm going to launch by May 1st. And so you're moving forward as hard as you can to get that launch out by May 1st. Whereas if you just said, you know what, this isn't ready yet, May 15th. And then buckle down for that 2 weeks and get it right so that you can launch on May 15th. So don't let this become, Don told me to make sure I get it right before I launch or do whatever it is. And so I'm just going to not launch because I'll never get it right. That's not what I'm saying. Take action, but make sure it's the right action in the right place, in the right time, in the right timing. What do you think about all this? Does this make sense? When I'm sure you've made this mistake in the past, tell me about a time when you went fast and didn't get the result that you were after. And tell me about a time when you went slow and got what you were really after. Let me know in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.